The story opens with an idyllic yet quietly unsettling introduction to Crowfield, a small village nestled between rolling green hills and an ancient, brooding forest. The air is thick with the scent of wildflowers and damp earth, and the villagers go about their days in a rhythm unchanged for generations. Children laugh and play in the cobblestone streets, their voices echoing off the weathered stone cottages with their thatched roofs and creeping ivy. At first glance, Crowfield seems like the perfect picture of rural tranquility, a place untouched by time. But beneath this serene surface, there is an unspoken tension. The villagers are friendly, yet their smiles don't quite reach their eyes. They speak in hushed tones when outsiders are near, and their gazes linger just a little too long on the children playing near the forest's edge. The older residents, particularly a bent-backed woman named Granny Hester, watch the woods with a mix of wariness and resignation. She is the village's unofficial keeper of secrets, her wrinkled face etched with lines of old fears. When a newcomer, perhaps a young teacher, a curious journalist, or a relative returning after many years, arrives in Crowfield, they are met with polite but guarded hospitality. The villagers offer bread and ale but avoid certain topics, especially when children are present. If the outsider asks too many questions about the past, they are quickly steered towards safer subjects: the harvest, the weather, the upcoming village festival. Yet hints of the village's dark history slip through. A faded mural in the church depicts a shadowy figure with wings, its meaning long forgotten by most. The local children sing an odd, repetitive rhyme about the black feathered watcher, though none can say where it came from. And sometimes, when the wind blows just right, the trees seem to whisper back. Granny Hester, sensing the outsider's curiosity, takes them aside one evening. Her cottage smells of dried herbs and candle wax, and the firelight casts flickering shadows on the walls as she speaks in a low, gravelly voice. "You'll be wanting to know about the disappearances then," she says, not as a question, but as a fact. She warns them not to wander too far into the woods, especially not at dusk when the crows gather in unnatural numbers. "Some say it's an old curse," she mutters. Others say it's something far older than curses. As night falls, the village takes on a different atmosphere. The laughter of children fades, doors are bolted earlier than necessary, and a deep, instinctive silence settles over Crowfield. The outsider watches from their window as the last light dies in the sky, and for a moment, they imagine something moving at the tree line, something that doesn't quite walk like a man. The scene ends with an unshakable sense of unease. Crowfield is peaceful, yes, but it is the peace of a held breath, the quiet before a storm. The tranquility of Crowfield shatters one crisp autumn afternoon when young Thomas Mayhew fails to return home for supper. At first, his mother assumes he has lost track of time, perhaps dawdling by the creek or playing hide-and-seek in the tall grass near the old mill. But as dusk settles and the village lanterns flicker to life, her calls go unanswered. A slow, creeping dread takes hold. By nightfall, the entire village is searching. Farmers abandon their evening chores, their boots crunching over fallen leaves as they shout Thomas's name into the gathering dark. The local men carry torches, their flames casting long, wavering shadows that seem to twist unnaturally against the trees. The women huddle together, their voices hushed but urgent, exchanging glances that speak of an old, unspoken fear stirring back to life. The search leads them to the edge of Blackthorn Wood, where the trees loom like silent sentinels. There, just beyond the last stretch of open field, they find Thomas's woolen cap lying in the dirt, neatly placed as if set down with care. Beside it, pressed into the soft earth, is a single black feather, too large to belong to any ordinary bird. No footprints lead into the woods. No broken branches suggest a struggle. It's as if the boy simply vanished into the air itself. Old Farmer Crow, a man whose family has lived in Crowfield for generations, goes very still at the sight of the feather. He doesn't speak, but the way his knuckles whiten around his walking stick says enough. The younger villagers press forward, calling Thomas's name with increasing desperation, but their voices seem to die the moment they reach the tree line, swallowed by something unseen. That night, the village gathers in the church, their faces drawn and pale in the candlelight. The priest offers prayers, but his words ring hollow. Too many remember the stories whispered by their grandparents, tales of children who wandered too close to the woods and were never seen again. Granny Hester sits apart from the others, her gnarled fingers tracing the spine of an old, leather-bound book. When the outsider approaches her, she doesn't look up. "It started again," she murmurs, more to herself than to anyone else. The next morning, the village wakes to an unnatural silence. The crows that usually caw and bicker in the fields are gone. In their place, a single note has been left on the church door, a child's drawing, crude but unmistakable. A figure with two long limbs and wings stands at the edge of a forest, its hand outstretched toward a stick figure boy. The paper smells faintly of damp earth and something metallic, like old blood. The disappearance of Thomas Mayhew is not the first. The villagers know it won't be the last, and as the wind carries the first whispers of winter through Crowfield, the children begin to dream of a voice calling to them from the woods, a voice that sounds almost like their own. The morning after Thomas Mayhew's disappearance, Crowfield wakes beneath a sky heavy with unshed rain, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and something sharper, fear, lingering like a fog. The villagers move through their chores in silence, their eyes darting toward the woods whenever they think no one is watching. The children, usually loud and restless, cling close to their mother's skirts, their games forgotten. The outsider, whether a journalist, a returning relative, or simply someone who arrived in Crowfield at the wrong time, finds themselves drawn to the village archives, a dusty back room in the old church where the records of Crowfield's past lie buried under layers of neglect. The priest, a weary man with shadows beneath his eyes, reluctantly unlocks the door. "You won't find answers here," he warns, but his voice lacks conviction. He knows as well as anyone that some truths refuse to stay buried. The archives are a labyrinth of yellowed parchment, crumbling ledgers, and faded ink. The outsider's fingers trace over census records, old sermons, and brittle newspaper clippings, each one hinting at a pattern too deliberate to ignore. Every 50 years, like clockwork, children vanish from Crowfield. The dates stretch back centuries, always in autumn, always near the woods. The descriptions are always the same. No signs of struggle, no footprints leading away, just a single black feather left behind. A name surfaces again and again in the margins, Mother Crowthorne. Granny Hester finds the outsider there, hunched over the records as the afternoon light slants through the narrow windows. She doesn't seem surprised. With a sigh, she settles into a chair, her joints creaking, and begins to speak in a voice like dry leaves. "She wasn't a witch, not really," Granny says. "At least, not the kind they burned. She was something older, something that was here long before Crowfield." The story unfolds like a nightmare, half-remembered. Long ago, when the village was little more than a handful of cottages, the first settlers made a bargain. The woods were dark, the winters cruel, and the land yielded little. So when a figure emerged from the trees, a woman with eyes too black, with feathers threaded through her hair, they listened. She promised them protection, good harvests, and healthy children. In return, they would give her one of their own every 50 years. A child left at the edge of the woods, no blood, no pain, just a gift. For generations, the pact held. The village prospered. And when the time came, the chosen family would leave their child at the tree line. And by morning, the child would be gone. No screams, no signs of struggle, just a single black feather on the ground. But 50 years ago, the villagers broke the pact. A child was taken, but not the one promised. A stranger's boy, a traveler's son. Mother Crowthorne did not take kindly to being cheated. She took 3 that year, Granny whispers, and she told them, next time, she would take them all. The outsider stares at the records, the dates lining up too perfectly. 50 years. Exactly. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the church windows. Somewhere in the distance, a crow calls, a sound too sharp, too knowing. The priest, hovering in the doorway, finally speaks. We don't speak of her, we don't acknowledge her, it only makes it worse. But Granny Hester's eyes are fixed on the outsider. You've dug too deep now, she says. She knows you're looking. And as if in answer, the candle on the table gutters, then goes out. The days grow shorter, the air colder, and Crowfield sinks deeper into silence. The villagers move like ghosts, their voices hushed, their eyes hollow. The children no longer play outside after dark, if they play at all. They huddle together now, speaking in whispers, jumping at every creak of the floorboards or rustle of leaves against the window. But the woods do not stay silent. At night, faint laughter drifts through the trees, high-pitched, playful, just familiar enough to make parents sit bolt upright in bed, their hearts pounding. Some swear they see small figures darting between the trunks at dusk, just beyond the tree line. But when they call out, the figures vanish, leaving only the echo of a child's giggle hanging in the air like a taunt. The outsider, now consumed by the mystery, gathers a small group, those few in Crowfield brave enough or desperate enough to face what lurks in Blackthorn Wood. Among them is Elias Crow, Farmer Crow's youngest son, whose brother was the last child taken 50 years ago. There's also Martha, the schoolteacher, who refuses to let fear keep her from searching for Thomas. And then there's Jem, a local boy no older than 12, who insists he's seen the missing children in his dreams, beckoning him toward the trees. They enter the woods at twilight, the time when the veil between worlds is said to be thinnest. The moment they cross the threshold, the air changes, thicker, heavier, as if the forest itself is breathing. The usual sounds of nature, the chirp of crickets, the rustle of squirrels, are absent. Only the wind moves here, sighing through the branches like a mourner at a grave. Deeper in, they find the clearing. It shouldn't be here. The woods aren't that large. They've all hunted or foraged here before. But this place feels older, untouched. The ground is bare, save for a ring of stones sunk into the earth. At the center stand crude effigies, twisted sticks bound with vines, shaped into the rough forms of children. Each one wears a scrap of cloth, a button, a lock of hair, things that belonged to the missing. Jem gasps. That's Thomas's cap, he whispers, pointing to one of the figures. Before anyone can react, the wind picks up, howling through the trees like a chorus of voices. The effigies rattle, their stick limbs trembling as if alive, and then laughter, real, bright, unmistakable, the laughter of children. Martha spins, her lantern casting wild shadows. "Did you hear?" But the others are already backing away, because the laughter isn't coming from the woods around them. It's coming from inside the effigies. Elias grabs Jem's arm, yanking him back as the closest figure twitches, its stick fingers curling. The air reeks of damp earth and something sweetly rotten. The outsider staggers, their pulse roaring in their ears as the laughter rises, louder now, twisting into something wrong. Too many voices, too many mouths, all singing the same nursery rhyme the Crowfield children chant without knowing why. Black feather, black bone, leave a child, take a child, mother waits for you alone. Then, as suddenly as it began, the wind dies. The effigies go still. The laughter fades, leaving only a single whispered word hanging in the dark. Soon. They run. Branches tear at their clothes. Roots seem to rise up to trip them. The woods, once so familiar, now feel like a living thing, shifting to confuse them. By the time they burst back into the open field, gasping, the village bell is tolling midnight. No one speaks as they stumble back to Crowfield. But when they reach the edge of town, Jem stops dead. His little sister is standing in the road, her nightgown fluttering in the wind. She wasn't there a second ago. And she's smiling. "I met the lady in the woods," she says, her voice dreamy. "She's very pretty. She says we can play forever." Then she collapses. When she wakes, she remembers nothing. But under her nails, ground deep into the skin, are flecks of black feathers. The village healer's cottage is thick with the scent of burning sage and bitter herbs, the air hazy with smoke as the outsider and the others gather around Jem's sister, Lissy, who lies pale and shivering beneath a quilt. Her fingers twitch fitfully, as if still clutching at something unseen. Granny Hester presses a poultice to the girl's forehead, her lips moving in silent prayer, or perhaps a warning. The outsider's hands are stained with ink from the archives, their mind racing with the pieces of Crowfield's dark history. But it isn't until Elias speaks, his voice raw with grief, that the final truth clicks into place. "My brother," he says, staring into the fire. "The last time children disappeared, he wasn't taken, he was given." A silence heavier than the grave settles over the room. Granny Hester's hands still. She doesn't look up, but her voice is steady, resigned. The crows have always been the ones to make the offering. It was our duty, our burden." The outsider recoils. "You sacrificed your own children?" "We thought we were saving the rest," Elias snaps, his fists clenched. "One life for the village. That was the bargain." But 50 years ago, Elias's father broke the pact. When the time came, he couldn't bear to give up his firstborn son. Instead, he took a child from a passing traveler family, left them at the wood's edge, and lied. He thought Mother Crowthorne wouldn't know the difference. She did, and now the debt is due. The outsider's skin prickles. That's why she's taking so many this time. She was cheated. Granny Hester nods slowly. She won't stop until the balance is restored, until she has what she's owed. Jem, who has been listening in horrified silence, suddenly pales. "The drawing on the church door," he whispers. "The winged lady. She wasn't reaching for the boy, she was pointing at the village." A gust of wind slams the cottage door open, sending embers swirling from the hearth. Outside, the crows are screaming, and then, from the woods, a sound that turns their blood to ice, the distant, joyous laughter of children. Too many children. The outsider knows what they must do. The curse won't be broken with more blood. It must be undone at its source. "Where is she?" they ask. "Where does Mother Crowthorne wait?" Granny Hester's eyes are black with reflected firelight. "Where else?" she says. "At the heart of the woods, where the first offering was made." And as the village bell begins to toll on its own, a deep, hollow sound that shakes the earth, the outsider understands. Crowfield's children are running out of time, and Mother Crowthorn is done waiting. The night hangs thick over Crowfield, the kind of darkness that feels alive, pulsing, breathing, pressing against the skin like damp velvet. The villagers have barred their doors, but the outsider stands at the edge of Blackthorn Wood with Elias, Martha, and Jem, their lanterns casting frail pools of light that seem to shrink from the trees. The air hums with something ancient, something hungry. They follow the path of black feathers scattered like breadcrumbs into the forest, each step heavier than the last. The trees grow twisted here, their branches tangled into archways that feel too much like rib cages. The laughter of children flickers in and out of hearing, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind, never close enough to touch, never far enough to escape. Then the woods open into a clearing they've never seen before. At its center stands a great gnarled oak, its trunk split wide like a wound. From the hollow, something glints, a nest of bones and feathers woven with scraps of children's clothing, and there, perched among the branches, is her, Mother Crowthorn. She is not quite woman, not quite bird. Her limbs are too long, her fingers ending in curved talons. Feathers rustle beneath her tattered shawl, and her eyes, black, depthless, fix on them with a predator's patience. At her feet, half hidden in shadow, sit the missing children. Their eyes are glassy, their smiles too wide, as if they've forgotten how to be afraid. Thomas Mayhew looks up, his face lit with eerie delight. "You came," he says, but the voice isn't his. Elias steps forward, his hands shaking. "Take me instead," he begs. "My family broke the pact. Let the children go." Mother Crowthorn tilts her head, a slow, avian motion. When she speaks, her voice is the wind through dead leaves, the creak of old ropes. "A life for a life," she croons. "But you have stolen years. The scales do not balance so easily." The outsider moves then, pulling the relic from their satchel, the crow-shaped totem Granny Hester had hidden beneath the church floorboards. "We're not here to bargain," they say. "We're here to end this." Mother Crowthorn hisses, her feathers bristling. The children begin to wail, their voices merging into a single, unearthly shriek as the ground trembles. Vines lash from the earth, snatching at ankles, and the trees lean in, their branches clawing. Martha lunges for the children, dragging them back as Elias swings his axe at the thrashing roots. Jem hurls a torch into the hollow of the oak, and the nest ignites with a sound like 100 crows screaming. Mother Crowthorn shrieks, a sound that splits the sky, and for a moment she is everywhere at once, in the flames, in the wind, in the terrified whites of their eyes. "You cannot burn a curse," she snarls. "You cannot kill what was never alive." But the outsider is already moving, raising the totem high. "No," they gasp, "but we can break it." They bring the relic down onto the roots of the oak, and it shatters. The world wrenches. The children collapse like puppets with cut strings. The woods howl, and Mother Crowthorn unravels. Feathers dissolve into smoke. Bones crumble to dust. The last thing they see is her mouth, stretched in a scream that has no sound. Then, silence. Dawn bleeds through the trees, and the clearing is just a clearing. The children stir, confused but unharmed. The oak stands whole, unmarked, and at its roots, where the totem lay, there is only a single withered feather, crumbling to nothing in the light. The first light of dawn spills over Crowfield like a balm, soft and golden, as if the land itself is exhaling after centuries of held breath. The villagers emerge from their homes one by one, their faces drawn with exhaustion and wary hope. The children, those who vanished and those who were left behind, cling to their parents, their eyes wide with confusion, their memories of the woods already fading like half-remembered dreams. The outsider stands at the edge of the village square, watching as families reunite, as tears are shed, as the weight of what they survived settles over them. The air is different now, lighter, though not entirely free of shadows. The woods loom in the distance, silent and still, but the path leading into them no longer feels like the maw of something waiting. Granny Hester sits on the church steps, her gnarled hands resting on her knees. She doesn't smile, but there's a quiet satisfaction in her eyes, as if she always knew it would end this way, or some version of it. When the outsider approaches, she nods toward the forest. "She's gone," she says, but the woods remember. They always do. The villagers begin the work of moving forward. The church bell, which had tolled on its own in the dead of night, now rings in a steady, deliberate rhythm, calling the people together. There are no grand speeches, no celebrations, only a shared understanding that some wounds take time to heal. The names of the lost are spoken in hushed tones, not with fear now, but with reverence. Elias Crow stands apart from the others, his gaze fixed on the horizon. He had been ready to give his life to atone for his family's choices, but the debt was paid in a different way. The outsider joins him, and for a long moment, neither speaks. Then Elias sighs, rubbing the back of his neck. "Do you think it's really over?" he asks. Before the outsider can answer, a gust of wind rustles through the square, carrying with it the faintest whisper, a child's laughter, or perhaps just the echo of one. Elias stiffens, but the outsider shakes their head. "Not over," they say, "but different. The story's changed now." As the days pass, Crowfield begins to mend. The children return to their games, though they no longer wander too close to the woods. The adults speak more freely, their conversations no longer laced with the old, familiar dread. And the outsider, their purpose here fulfilled, prepares to leave. On their last evening, Jem finds them packing their things. The boy hesitates, then holds out a small, clumsily carved wooden crow, a token, an apology, perhaps a thank you. "I don't remember much," he admits, "but I know you helped." The outsider takes the carving, tucking it into their pocket. "Just promise me one thing," they say. "Keep telling the story, even when it starts to feel like just a story." Jem nods solemnly. And as the outsider walks away from Crowfield the next morning, the village seems smaller somehow, nestled in the valley like a secret. The road ahead is open, the sky clear. But just before they round the bend, they glance back one last time, and there, perched on the church roof, a single crow watches them go. For a heartbeat, its eyes seem too knowing. Then it spreads its wings and flies, vanishing into the sun. The wind carries the scent of wildflowers, and the path ahead is bright. But somewhere, deep in the roots of the old stories, something stirs, not a curse, not yet, just a whisper, waiting. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.